Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Sarah Griffiths, Rob H, Ben White, Maximum Gravy, John Kays, Tommy Swagnuts, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Maris, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Muted, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another huge, massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'll hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Then I kind of felt bad because I'm going to take your stance on it. I'm going to call him Blue Marble Science. He got very offended when I called him Hillbilly Blue Balls. He's like, I don't like your ethnic slurs. What if I called you Neil the Wop? Because I was shocked that he was on. They said, oh, Hillbilly Blue Balls. The guy who demonstrates gas pressure without a container with 5 containers. So
Yeah.
I'll call him Blue Marble Science from now on.
Well, it just doesn't help your argument, does it? If you call him some racist slur, there's no point. It doesn't help you.
It actually just came out because, I didn't know he was going to get so offended about it.
Oh, he's only doing that to latch onto something. That's my point. It's not that he is... I doubt highly that he's even the slightest bit offended. He just wants something else to latch onto, to nag at you about. That's all. Because he's got no rebuttal, so much better to point out that you're being mean. Right? Because that'll win him the argument. So that's the route he's taken. So they do. They just latch onto any major on the minors. They'll latch onto any little thing that is relatively insignificant, so they can focus on that. And it'll typically be about you, the individual.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the 2,000 years. Over 2,000 years, it's been a sphere. And now, all of a sudden, in 7 years, it's flat. The nonsense like that. They can't answer one housekeeping question. I just stuck on the elevation angle. They can't answer that.
Good one. I like it. It's my favourite. I'd stick on that because it's essentially proof of a flat Earth. They're like, now we need to get to proving a flat Earth. It seems like wishful thinking when that's what we've been barking on about for a significant period of time with the sextant argument.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, that caught the last part of that. So now their fight is not only against us, but geometry itself. So now it's a twofold front for them. They have to deny the reality of our Earth and what we observe, what is there to assess. And then when we bring up the section argument, now they got to throw geometry under the bus, which makes them look really bad.
Yeah, what they would say, they're basically telling flat earthers, where's your proof of flat Earth? First, it's a burden of proof reversal fallacy, number one. They have to prove. They got the extraordinary claim, right? But anyway, we can prove flat.
Yeah, they do have the extraordinary claim, but if you're to claim it's flat, you can equally call that a claim and justify asking for proof. And up until now, there's been plenty of top 5 flat Earth proofs, demonstrations that can only utilise a flat plane. I just never liked any of them until now. Now I like this one. I'll stick my name into this. Oh, you're right. You want me to just prove that it's flat? Okay. Elevation angle proves it's flat. You can't navigate without measuring these angles, and you need a flat plane to do so. So unless you can show me how you can acquire one of these angle measurements from a curved surface, that's necessitating a flat plane. It can't not be flat. The geometry dictates it. So there you go. There's my proof. Don't like it? Tough luck. You just got to deny it then. Okay. Get around
Agreed,
it.
and agreed, and that's where I stood. I stood right at that elevation angle.
Well, the zenith position of a star is after you use the sextant to get the elevation angle. Once you have the elevation angle, the co-angle, or co-altitude in this case, is the zenith of the star and the zenith of the observer. Two straight vertical lines straight above the star coming to the Earth, from the star, and then above the observer coming to the Earth. That zenith to zenith there is a linear distance, straight line.
Yeah, and you got Phil B in the chat on one of your shows saying this nonsense with 90 and triangles. All you have to do is hold the sextant plumb. Plumb. Okay.
Well, that's the whole idea.
And then what do you do? Oh, okay. All you have to do is hold the sextant. What do you do next? 10th.
Well, it depends what you're doing. Are you using an artificial horizon? Are you using a bubble horizon?
Let's just say we're using the horizon we see.
Oh, the natural horizon at sea. Well, then you must already know how high above the deck of the ship you're going to be above the sea level surface.
Okay, let's say I know the plimsoll line of the boat, and I know exactly how high I am in respect to that, so I know my exact height above the deck. Deck not being the deck of the ship, but deck being the deck of the ground that the ship is lying on in terms of the angle measurement that you're going to make. But the next step after you've got your sextant is to use which arm? Which arm do you use first?
Oh, the index arm you bring down to the horizon mirror with the sun coming down or the star coming down to the horizon mirror, and then you waggle it until you see it in the middle to get a true vertical. That's the point of the waggle, to get a true vertical so you're not off. And then you note the time, the date, and everything. Then you go to the books and you do all of the corrections. And one of the main corrections, if you're using the natural sea horizon, is how high above the sea level were you? You need to subtract that so that your horizontal line in your eye could be given to you by the level line after the dip subtraction. So parallel lines there.
Right, so once we've established horizontal with the horizon and corrected for any errors based on our height above the sea level, in this instance, we can then go forth with the understanding that the zenith position of the star and the zenith position of your measurement are parallel with one another. So there's a flat line between the two so that they can both have a 90 degree at the zenith points, correct?
Correct. That's what their pictures show all the time, and that's what the writings say.
So therefore, to do this maths, it must be flat. It can't not be flat.
Yeah, the picture you have up right now, that's pretty much says it all right there.
Yeah, there's no flat surfaces on a sphere. You can't do this trick. And they don't have a physical geometric marked with an X labelled horizon point to put a tangent plane on. That would be a flat plane teeter-tottering on a sphere that they don't have underneath and isn't necessary to measure these angles with zenith positions meeting a flat plane at 90. So even if they have a teeter-tottering zenith position to a tangent plane, it wouldn't match the angle measurement of the stars because it's no longer coming in. It's moving to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth, which is not where you're making the measurement from.
Yeah, the surface level there is dotted, and you can see that's their tangent plane that they have to draw as far out as they want to, which is impossible on a sphere because you can't have they want a straight surface on a sphere for it to work. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and there's only one minuscule point that it meets their fantasy at any point. In other words, every single part that they measure thereafter is flat, a flat plane, and it is in no way congruent with the sphere that was beneath it, because they're not taking any measurements from the centre of sphere Earth with lines moving parallel to the centre. We don't see that in terms of the way the light works, and we don't have an angle measuring device at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth with a curved surface that won't give you an elevation angle.
Correct, but Phil B continues to say, then why do all the manuals say it's a spherical Earth you're going to be navigating on?
Well, that's the whole point of the deception. they mix it. And this is what Adam said eloquently last week, and what I've been saying since the beginning. You go in there, they got some truths because it has to work that way, and then they trick everyone to say it's working that way on a sphere. And so they have a picture of a sphere. It's actually a circle, but sometimes they put a 3D look to it with shadows and all. And then they do this big old tangent plane and use straight lines after that. And you say, well, none of these straight lines can work on this round object to get what they want. And then when you go into it, you find out it's a linear distance. The nautical mile is a linear distance, right? Because zenith to zenith is linear. It's so
Got your
obvious.
first message up. I've only read the first line,
Correct.
but at 10th man, what does it matter if you can or cannot see the geometric horizon? Question mark. Oh, it matters greatly when you're deriving a tangent plane from it to get around the fact that you haven't got any flat surfaces on a sphere to make this angle measurement. All the fundies, Ruhif's one of them, is telling us how you can draw out tangent plane to the geometric horizon we've debunked. So it matters if you're utilising it, which in this instance you absolutely are. You're using a geometric horizon to place a tangent point on. Let's just bring up the diagram again. So, on screen, here's your geometric physical marked with an X labelled horizon tangent point for this straight line to exist in fantasy world maths on top of the sphere that isn't being measured because you can't get 90 degrees to it. Further to that, this line we're going to call the line that's coming from a star to this position down here, which could equally be measured on the vast tangent planes they tell us we can have on their curved surface that isn't being used to measure these angles. It can't be. You need two straight lines. So when you're making that claim, you're going to need this marked with an X labelled horizon tangent point to be Earth curve, because that's your claim in the first instance. So it matters greatly because it's your claim of Earth curve that we've debunked with the black swan, meaning you can't do this anymore because you haven't got a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon to call a tangent point anymore.
Read the second one because I don't know why it does it backwards, but I posted that second one on Brian's video, and then I got that message.
Highlighted comment from yourself. As it's your word, you may as well read it. The geometric horizon is purely theoretical construct.
Yeah, geometric horizon is a purely theoretical construct, not anything you can see. The geometric horizon is not a real measurement. Its distance is the result of a real arithmetic problem. Brian, another excellent breakdown video. Cheers. And then I got that message, which is like, what? These people are insane.
Yeah, it matters because you're claiming it.
I mean, the first line, what does it matter if you can or cannot see the geometric horizon?
Well, let's just paraphrase what he's asking. What does it matter if you can or cannot see Earth curve?
Yeah, that's why I said it's just everything. I mean, the show wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be talking about it. Give me a break.
Yeah, that's a joke. But back to what Phil B said about how come all the manuals say it's a sphere. That's sort of like the same thing with the Coriolis when they say that sharpshooters in the manual they account for Coriolis, but that's not how it's done. And who even knows if the manuals say that? I was never in the military.
Look, I have a sextant. I have a manual. I have downloaded sextant manuals. It's conflated with so much falsehood in there and also truth. And then you have to navigate, pun intended, through those sentences and say, okay, what is this tool? You remember early on last year, it's an angle measuring device. That's all the thing is. Sextant measures angles. Okay, what constitutes an angle? What's an angle? What is not an angle? What can they slip in as an angle that's not an angle? And then you just go through there. The very accusation is that I am not logical using geometry or critical thinking. And yet here I am explaining logic. Angle measuring device, what's an angle? Can it work on the curved adjacent? No.
Yeah, if they don't believe that they've been lied to, they're not going to be looking for truth. They're just going to be looking for everything to confirm that it's a sphere. But you
Yeah,
know
and
what?
what they're going to
Doesn't
find?
confirm.
They're going to find they
Nothing.
needed geometric horizon to make that assertion, and we've debunked it. And they've been spending 2 years telling us how they no longer have a physical geometric point to put a tangent on. It's refracted. Oh, right, so no longer geometric then, not capable of Earth measurement. Well, then you can't derive R from it. What's that you say? It's refracted. Oh, did you not realise your refraction relies on having an R value? Oh, how sad it is to watch them grasp at straws. And what are they grasping at? A geometric horizon they've spent 2 years telling us they can't see and doesn't exist beyond the maths.
I sent you another one. This came right afterwards.
Yeah, it's up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so again, I read my comment to Brian, and then Sean Hawkins responds, show me a citation from any nautical navigation source that says you have to drop the point of observation to the ground or sea, ? You made that up to fit your dishonest narrative. Gotta lie to Fleur, right? And why do you challenge people to discuss stuff with you, but chicken out on debate? you know, I did a whole show with Mitchell on dip or not to dip. That is the correction. And we listed all the citations. I've shown them here on this channel. You could show it to them. Then they come out and say, you've never shown a citation. How many citations have I shown that says dip is height of eye above sea level? How many of those have I shown?
A lot. And I knew they were going to struggle with that, though. I knew that that's what they were going to struggle with, bringing your eye to the surface.
Yeah, but here's the point. Show me a citation from any nautical navigation. That's all I've used. There are no flat Earth navigation books. It's a joke.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're using their books. You're right, Ted. Well, this sure has them in a tissy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's.
Yeah.
Do you know how last week I was pointing out that the people will be on their way to the nut house? I've heard several of the YouTubers make the same exact comment.
They're already in the nut house. They get one free call a week. They're already in the nut house.
Well, that's I hadn't considered it that way, but I think they're one step closer for certain, and more the fact that people are noticing the mental tension that our opponents are under, me included. Now, don't get me wrong, I think one of them was Bev, and Bev was like, I'm not here to cause people mental anguish. When he said that, I happened to have it on in the background. He's just, doing other things. And I ran over to the chat and I was like, lol. Yeah, we say share your pain.
Well, when you're sharing the subject matter that we're on, and they are putting such a fight against it with all the evidence going against them and their extraordinary claims, all we're doing is sharing the truth and want to have a conversation with our fellow man. But they're the ones who become hostile and start attacking us and calling us liars and afraid to debate. How many times have I responded to Sean Hawkins? I'm here 5 days a week on your show. Come on, bring it here. You've seen the citations. You lie about me not showing them, but you never come here. As if I'm going to ever take my time and go to one of those nutty channels. Well, $5,000 an hour, I'll do it. And then I'll say the very same things I say here. And then I'll get my 5,000 and they'll say, see? And they'll say, see what? I said the same things.
Well, in the chat, somebody said that about you. I said he's on a flat Earth debate show daily called Nathan Oakley 1980. So is Nathan. You're welcome to come on and get demolished.
Well, it's such a great rebuttal that I don't know how we can ignore it.
You having a laugh?
Yeah, I just goofing off. But his rebuttal was, show me any citation for the height of eye correction. Is that really his argument?
Yeah. I've never shown it, and it's not in any navigational book. Just like right angles aren't, and I showed that. Just like triangles aren't, and I showed that. 90, shh, don't say 90. That's what. Oh my goodness.
Well, 10th, nobody claims that there's actual physical geometry to the world. I mean, this is just crazy now.
Yeah, when it comes to you actually citing things that show that you're going to need 90 degrees, you're going to need a flat plane, you're going to need to use this tool to measure an angle with two straight lines, you're going to be utilising an elevation angle. When you show them all of these things, they'll say, how dare you? How dare you use geometry against me? Who's doing that? And what John's pointing out is, yeah, that's the basis of their claim. Their extraordinary claim that in this case, measuring an elevation angle, needs correcting for them. In other words, they make a dip correction, a correction from their faulty false sphere when they have some sort of, I don't know, citation that alludes to the correction being for a geometric physical sphere edge we can't see and only exists in maths. Well, that's a correction, i.e. it's wrong. But when they're doing that correction from globe geometry that's wrong to being correct and flat, they're perfectly okay with that. You know, us correcting how wrong our globe is. When you say, no, it's just high above the sea level, you know, you're going to skew your angle because you're above the sea, when that's the deck, that's the line that you're utilising the horizon with. Obviously, if you're up in the air, that's going to have an error induced. I mean, you could get right down to the deck, and then there wouldn't be any error, but you probably wouldn't see very far. Either way, there's a justifiable reason for why you do a height above the sea level, if you're on the sea, correction. And it's there in all the citations. They do it when they're correcting for a globe that isn't working to get an angle with, and that's okay. When we do it, outrageous. Like, we're not doing it because we want to assert the Earth's flat. It's just that's necessitated by the type of geometry that's being used. It can't not be. It has to be flat. Wouldn't work. And if you've got a globe belief as you enter that door, you've got to leave that shit at the door. You've got to correct it. Your dip correction, that nonsensical correction from a globe horizon that doesn't exist. Yeah, you've got to get that flat.
And Brian's diagram last week was outstanding. Really brought it to a visual. And you know what? You're right. They do have the extraordinary claim. But I did see an extraordinary game last night. Woo! Buffalo, Kansas City. Toe-to-toe. Two heavyweights.
Not to change the subject, I want to make a correction to something I said about a tangent plane. They are possible, but only on a flat plane.
Hold on.
Wait
A tangent plane, right, is a flat plane laying at a tangent point, a single point on a sphere, right? That's a mathematical term.
Not necessarily a sphere, no.
Go on then.
Just a circle. Just a circle.
Tangent to a circle on its side, so laying flat on the ground, you can have a tangent to that circle. Okay, what use is that?
Yeah.
And what circle are you talking about?
Well, I guess the horizon. I don't know, but if you had a flat sheet of paper and you drew a circle on it, and then from that flat sheet of paper, you raised up in the air like an inch and drew a line from the top of that to the circle, you could call that a tangent, but it's on a plane.
No, you couldn't. The only tangent achievable on that circle you've drawn is if you're on the plane you've drawn the circle, that's flat with the paper, and you draw a tangent from a position like I showed on the diagram of a sphere Earth. That's essentially what you've got, but just held upright if you're looking at it on a screen. Well, that's a circle with a line drawn to it at a tangent point that's called a tangent plane in their description. That's exactly what you're describing. The moment you add a third dimension to it, you add a height dimension to it, and say you're looking down from a height dimension to the sphere, that's not a tangent you're drawing to it. I don't know what no.
Well, how do you define tangent?
It's the point that that flat line would meet a sphere. So on the... do you want me to bring the diagram back up that I had up on... Oh, you weren't here. It's just a sphere Earth diagram. It's a straight line that meets the circle at a single point.
I got something when you're done about that triangles.
Well, within 3 dimensions, what would I be describing then?
But okay, so that's what I'm saying. You've moved from 2-dimensional circles on a flat piece of paper to being above it, drawing a line down to it. Well, that can still be a tangent, and that's how that circle for the globe Earth depiction with a circle only, not a spherical. You can't achieve that two-dimensionally on a screen. So the representation they have of a circle is representing a 3D sphere in side view. But that doesn't mean that if you come out dimensionally from a circle as opposed to a sphere, that you can suddenly achieve a tangent point in the third dimension to that 2D sphere. You can't.
Well, that's assuming that, like, if you're talking about a tangent, that's just to a circle, right?
Circle or
But
sphere,
I think
or
what I'm
sphere.
just
Either or.
right. But what I'm saying is more of like a circle of equal altitude, and it's really conceptual, and it's more like a radius what I'm talking about.
That wouldn't be a tangent plane. That would just be a tangent you derive mathematically from a circle on the ground, in this case utilised for something that doesn't require any tangents to it. You've just got a radius, which represents the distance from you on the outside edge to the GP of the star, therefore the circle that you draw with your compass on the map, if you're trying to figure out where you are. Well, once you've got that circle on the map, typically you'd move on to another star, right? To figure out where your position is in relation to those two locations, hoping you don't need a third. But at no point do you draw a tangent on the ground to any of those circles. There's no necessity for a tangent. And even if there was, it's not a tangent plane. That's something very, very specific. That's a flat, in this case, navigatable but imaginary with respect to the circle, because it's hovering above it, only touching it at a single point. But it's a great big flat area. That's the area you'll actually be measuring and utilising in relation to the ground you're actually standing on when you've got a sphere beneath. So you just ignore all the curviness that doesn't exist beneath your feet and you put a big flat plane on top of it and say that's the plane I'm actually dealing with, because the flat tangent plane far more closely represents the actual flat plane we stand on. And it must be representative of it if you're going to measure it and navigate it. So they just claim that there's some relation to a sphere by putting a big flat plane on top of it, meeting at a single point. Well, they're only doing that because Earth is actually flat and they have to navigate it in some respect and still somehow, in even a vague way, maintain that there's a sphere beneath that flat plane that they're actually utilising, so they call it a tangent plane. What does that mean if anyone looks into it? Well, it means a flat plane meeting a point of a sphere. So therefore sphere, oh well, that's enough for me to carry on my day and know that we're on a sphere for most ignorant people. That's all you need.
It's also an oxymoron, though, when you use it that way.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's the only way to use it. It's oxymoron. It's like atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
You can't have a flat... Exactly, when we got to that with Highlander, they forget their basic assertion, to the point where they'll claim that a level surface is actually bending because it's on a sphere Earth and therefore level with gravity at all points that you navigate over it, respectively to yourself. Well, therefore, that's curved, bent, flat, or bendizontal, or whatever they want to call it. So that's from a necessity that there aren't any flat surfaces. It's all going to always be spherical, and when it isn't, it's because you've just moved relative to gravity. But it's still curving at the rate they claim at 8 inches per mile squared, dropping away from your position. Okay, so it's always bending. So when they say, well, we're going to draw out a flat tangent plane on top of it now, not that that's got anything to do with the ground that we say the sphere is, it's a flat plane we're going to be dealing with that teeter-totters on top of the sphere. We're like, well, then it isn't the ground you think we're standing on. You think the ground's curving. So it's an oxymoron in the respect that there's such a thing, this mathematical derivation that helps you deal with the actual ground, which is a plane, exists with a sphere beneath it. It's like, well, it's just the plane we're dealing with then. If it's nothing to do with the sphere beneath it, and that's, according to you, the ground we're actually standing on, you wouldn't need to correct it to be a plane. You just deal with it as it was. You don't, because it isn't. So yeah, oxymoron. Tangent plane. There are no such animals on a sphere. There's no flat surfaces. That's their claim. So yeah, it is and it isn't an oxymoron. It exists in maths, but it doesn't mean that you've got a flat surface teeter-tottering on a sphere just because you're measuring it. It just means the Earth's a plane.
Well, it's like any other reification when you're trying to take yourself out of, the first person and put it into third person, looking down at yourself. They do a lot of that in their mathematics. It's modeling, but it doesn't make any sense. I can't. I'm yet to make sense of it with the horizon being a straight line and encompassing your position. I mean, it's just the world's an amazing place. That's all I mean.
Well, the star is somewhere over the Earth. Its GP is directly under it, the zenith position. Circle of equal altitude would bring the circumference of that circle to the observer holding the sextant to even get that sighting, that angle. It's an angular measurement. Now, once you apply the rest of what the sextant needs to get the co-altitude, then you know the zenith distance between the observer zenith and the star's zenith on the Earth. Well, those are 90 degree, that's geometry. And just like when George Musser went on Fight the Thai Church channel and schooled him about gravity, this is what I'm afraid awaits all these ballers who think they know what a sextant is and what a dip measurement is and isn't. See, they keep saying you're going to be able to get the angle with one line. One line? How do you get an angle with one line? Well, all you need is horizontal. Okay, well, that's two lines. They're going to be embarrassed.
Yeah, they are embarrassing when it comes to this whole one-line nonsense. Yeah, you don't need to establish anything other than the line to the star. You're like, right, yeah, you do. It's two lines.
Well, this is.
May I ask a question?
Hang on. So this is where this is going to end up. It's going to end up with many sextant experts being the George Musser of the sextant argument, schooling these guys. It's coming.
Well, the one guy that was on when I jumped on Jose G. Gonzalez show, he was saying, I have a piece of paper, and he was doing something with 3 triangles, and he was claiming that this could never happen on a flat Earth. It could only happen on a sphere. I didn't catch the whole thing because the internet was pretty choppy, but I heard it before, something with the 3 triangles. Is anybody aware of that argument?
No, I'd have to hear it in context. But what is common with 3 triangles? Do they all have a baseline, an adjacent?
Well, I can
Yes.
I can give the argument if you want it.
Yeah, I got half of it. I didn't get the whole thing.
It's 90 degrees. If you walk for so far and you make a 90-degree turn and then walk so far and then make another 90-degree turn, walk so far, you'll end up 90 degrees from your start position. I don't know if I'm describing that real well, but it's pretty much they're saying that the ground has to be curved because you've traveled in a straight line, you've made a 90-degree turn 3 times, and that creates a triangle. So the Earth has to be a sphere for that to work.
Really? So a right angle, how many right angles do we have in a triangle?
Three. Unless
No,
it's a
it has to deal
spherical
with going-
triangle.
Ah,
Yeah, it's
I
a spherical
see.
triangle.
There we go.
He might have said that too. He might have said, I'm not sure. I got to go back and listen. Then I'll come back with that.
But we only have one problem. Well, more than one, I guess. Their measurement comes from where?
Center of Earth.
There's no sphericity, if I said that right. I can't even say that word.
Sphericity.
Yeah, that word. They're using a big old plane when they cut the Earth in half. And they're using a flat baseline there to get it. They're just getting it from the surface, but lying to us about the Earth and saying they're getting it from the center where they can have access to a flat baseline. They can't have access to a flat baseline on the surface. That's why that sextant can't work on the surface of the Earth. It would work from the center, but no one's there doing it.
Correct. They can't get to the center of the Earth. Otherwise, we know what the molten iron core was.
Well, they'll never come back.
Well, another problem is they're assuming that the magnetic declination lines of longitude or no latitude are straight lines. So they're not accounting completely for what
Well,
they're
this
saying.
is, they have a linear circumference, and take 2 aspirins and call me in the morning after you try to break that one up.
John, I don't know if you heard me earlier, but on Jose's show Friday, they were demanding that flat earthers start showing proof of this flat earth that we claim.
The fact you can measure angles from the surface doesn't shock them.
Yeah, right? You think it would, right? And even the elevation angle, you can't get it on a curved surface. You think that would shock them? Nope. They were doing the burden of proof reversal fallacy. I was trying to tell them, listen, you got the extraordinary claim. You got the spinning ball. You got the gravity. You got the gas pressure out of the container. You got to start explaining those things. We live. It's obvious and observable. The world has never appeared spherical to anybody, ever, except for pictures.
From a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum that doesn't exist akin to Narnia.
Well, that's why I wrote it's a thought experiment. It's not real. Never was real.
Right. That's why that thing with Mass Powerland blew me away when he was saying that you will never, ever have this view of Earth, ever.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy, and this is of particular note if you drive an electric vehicle. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Arwin, Refracted Curvature, Neil, 10th Man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello, good afternoon.
How are you?
Hey, good morning.
I'm very well. Good to have you all. Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle from a curved adjacent?
Enough of that, flat earther. Prove the Earth is flat.
You can just smurf it.
Smurf it? Smurf that elevation angle.
Yes.
So is it which way around is it? Is it Smurf elevation angle or an elevation angle Smurf?
It's
No,
just
but
an
Bob
elevation
knows.
smurf.
He put some
Elevation
claims
Smurf.
in the text chat that Monday he's going to release how to obtain an angle from a curved adjacent.
Yeah. An angle's two straight lines.
Oh, yeah, it's going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
It's going to happen today.
No, it's
bro.
not going to happen.
No, he said it. He said it's going to happen, bro. He said it's going to happen.
Okay. So when we take this tool out called the sextant, what's the name of that mirror that it's got again?
Horizon mirror.
Horizon mirror. Right, derived from the word horizontal. Okie dokie. And that's because we're going to be using horizontals and 90-degree with zenith positions at your location and a star's location, right?
Right?
Right. So, acquisition of an angle, that's two straight lines, with a curved adjacent for the triangle. No, that's not going to be the case. No, it has to meet at 90 to do triangulation. The trig requires it.
He's not going to show you how to do it with a curved adjacent. At best, what he might do is get the elevation angle using the plane and then figure out the mathematical distance using the radius of the Earth, which
he'll
would
need
be
half
very
of that.
different.
Oh, he'll need
like
half
Mick
of that.
Jones did.
He'll need half of that, and he'll need a tangent point for his claim. We've heard the vague, useless claims that have come our way so far, and they require you have a physical geometric spheroidal horizon to put a tangent plane, something that doesn't exist in reality, on top of it. That would be the correction for your sphere assumption to a flat plane that you're actually going to measure. Yes, so no, you're still going to need an angle, and that's two straight lines and always will be. You just can't get that from a sphere surface. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curvature?
No, but we have to prove the flat Earth.
There is no tangents on a flat Earth.
Yeah, after the conversation in the pre-show, I'm going to agree with you.
I wish you guys could have heard that Jose G. Gonzalez show. They were demanding. That's enough. Enough of this. 7 years. You've never given us any proof of flat. Prove your flat Earth.
Elevation angle.
That's where I stood.
And the crazy thing, you know how you said, Neil, to prove the curvature, it's like specifically prove that 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet is a justifiable claim. That's all. I mean, if you like John says, if you have that, like we had never had no problem.
Well, Eli, the problem is it's a thought experiment, the geometric horizon. So no matter what ratio they give you, it's not there. It never can be
posted
seen.
Bob's assertion for everyone to read. If somebody can read it, that's available in Discord.
I'll pop it up on the live stream video display for the audience. If you can stick it in Skype, someone who can gather it from live stream chat.
I'll take it. I'll get it.
But in the meantime, can you break it down as a summary? Was that Rams? Or was it citation, please?
Well, one of the questions he asked is, what's the difference in an angle measurement if you use a curved versus straight baseline?
Okay, can I answer
So you
that?
can already see.
Well, let's just answer it.
Starting on
one is
logical incoherent.
Yeah, it's logically incoherent. One is an angle measurement and one isn't. The one with the curve isn't. So it's incoherent, correct?
That's correct.
Anything else?
Right. It's a category error in logic. For Bob's benefit, that's what that error is called, Bob.
Do they need to know why you can't get an angle from a curved adjacent? Is that really what it's descended to, that you have to demonstrate?
No, they've evolved the argument. No, they've evolved the argument to what's the difference in the angle measurement between a curved and straight baseline. And, they're putting that to us. Like, what's the difference? Do you even know what the difference would be? Oh.
Like Nathan said, one's an angle.
I just summarised it, yeah. I won't do it again, but I will read out Fiber Oates' excellent comment via Super Chat. Absolutely fantastic shows last week, fellas. Here's the question. Will Bob, I assume you mean Bob the Science Guy, be welcomed into Flat Earth community, excuse me, with open arms? Question mark. Thank you very much for the question, Fibroids. I really appreciate the support. Also, thank you for the super chat. That's a question that I'm going to slightly paraphrase, which is to say that some of our most vehement opponents, if they were to realise, and I'm going to speak from their point of view, the awful truth that Earth is actually flat, as proven by elevation angle, then would we welcome them with open arms? I'm going to open that up to anybody, Discord or G+. Take it away, in answer to Fiber Oats' super chat question.
That's a conditional statement. It depends on how they're acting. The way you treat somebody is in the amount of respect they give you. I mean, people can change, but I doubt it'd be open arms immediately.
Indeed. Yeah, I don't really care that much if you're a flat earther, in quotes. Speak nonsense and expect ridicule. That's just how it is.
In business as well as sports, the most qualified person is given the position. And so we wouldn't want to lower the IQ of the flat earth community. We need to be careful here.
Skeptic936 says, by super chat, thank you for the super chat, Skeptic936. I wouldn't want Bob in my arms. Well, speak for yourself. I'm sure he's lovely.
I've posted the link in the the screenshot in the chat, Master V.
Oh, right. So if there's anything you want to add, Citation Police, you were breaking up a little bit earlier. It's posted now.
Morning, guys.
Nah, I'm just waiting for Bob to prove his curved adjacent so that I can update my reality.
Of course.
He's look. He's not going to prove a curved adjacent by calculating it after having the elevation angle with a flat plane already. Like, that's just absurd. That's not proving that. It's not proving anything.
Don't jump the gun. He hasn't offered anything yet, Eli. Hold on. Check it out. You can smell blood. He hasn't offered anything yet. Don't worry. You don't need to pull it apart before it's come. When it comes, if that is the case, then obviously I'll expect you to repeat it once it comes. But, don't preemptively attack Bob. He hasn't offered anything yet, has he? Unless I'm mistaken, Citation Police.
Nope, today is the release date that he claimed it's going to be released.
Super exciting. You'd expect this stuff to be very readily available should the Earth be a sphere, and this be the case with curved adjacents as opposed to basic trig and adjacents needing straight lines to meet at 90 degrees. You just, no. This isn't going to be the case, Bob. I mean, obviously you can deny trig, but that's not going to get you very far in terms of how this actually applies to the ground we're standing on. Yeah? It's all very amusing. But we'll see what he comes up with. I'm sure it'll be brilliant.
Nathan, by the way, hi, Chocolate. Can you go to Master V? I put the Math is Fun link and click on that link. It takes you to perpendicular lines. And then it's a little fun thing to do at this moment, especially with the subject right now. You put your finger in the box and it lets you do a perpendicular. And when you're wrong, it lets you know. When you're right, it lights up. And it's needed.
Is that the stage we're at now?
Yeah. I'm down.
What?
Chocolate. I really got to help these guys.
They need a Fisher Price, my first perpendicular.
Yeah. And it's self-correcting, by the way. So if you put your finger in that box and hold it and draw a line and it's not perpendicular, it doesn't change color. And the minute you do it, it turns yellow. And yes, they are perpendicular. Try more or press next.
Very good. Yeah, we are getting to that point. And shout out to Bev, who's been saying this ever since he's been here. You're getting to the point where they're having to deny basic geometry. That's what they're at. And Bev's getting more stick as time goes on. I can only assume that the dumbing down and the over repetition of this argument in this regard is going to get more and more glazed looks from ballers turn into stark realization, and that turns into anger. And as Bev's been parroting this stuff for a very long time, his message hasn't changed very much, if at all. The vitriol level that Bev's seeing as a result has gone up, as we were discussing in the pre-show. Interesting times. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
We don't see any deviations.
Well, then you and your reference frames are ruined, Darwin.
Just
Damn
told
it.
me. I was just gonna say, why would you expect to see such a thing?
Ruined.
Why would you expect to see such a thing that's claimed to be seen? I don't understand.
Why would I expect to see such a thing that's claimed to be seen by the globe when we don't see it? Oh, I wouldn't.
But that's crazy. Because of course
Crazy.
you would expect to see something that is claimed to be seen, but we don't see. And then ask why you don't see the thing expected to be seen.
It's crazy
Great.
when pointed out that we don't see the globe's claim of deviation when we look to see if there is any deviation claimed to be there by the globe, and we don't see any deviation, that our opponents would ask us, the flat earthers, why we, the flat earthers, would expect to see the globe's claim of deviation. Because that is precisely the scenario. We get asked why we'd expect to see any drift, and then get given examples of no drift occurring. When the globe claims there's 15 degrees an hour of drift, it's called Coriolis effect. We just don't see it. Subsequently, as I've just summarised, we get asked why we would expect to see it. That would be Earth claims of drift that we don't see.
So maybe they're, as of yet, have to set up this debate with Neil deGrasse Tyson, because apparently he just sits in his living room, watches TV, and he sees this deviation.
No, he hasn't even answered me yet, Chocolate. He has not even answered me.
Oh, you're waiting for a direct answer from him?
Listen, it says that he reads all emails and he will get back to every single question presented to him.
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson's not a real person, he's just a CGI character. So they run all the letters through the CGI bot of Neil deGrasse Tyson. It doesn't mean you'll get a response, but technically it's true. CGI bot read that letter and then promptly ignored it.
Yeah, but here's the problem, right? It's not your question, Neil, that he needs to respond to. It's the Globers. Because the Globers say, why do we expect to see this drift? And he clearly says that he sees this drift. So they clearly have something to work out between themselves before even fucking with us. Thanks.
Neil's question
Oh,
to
no, I
Neil deGrasse
question-
Tyson was, how can you have a curved adjacent whilst acquiring an elevation angle? Whereas you're saying he needs to answer in response to his claim that Earth turned underneath a football to cause a field goal. And then he offered up the maths for how much Earth would be turning underneath. That's Coriolis drift that we don't see. Now, balls do curve. It doesn't mean that Earth's turned underneath them. If they did, the blimp watching the game would have Earth turning underneath it at 15 degrees an hour in the same way the ball is claimed to have. Now, we don't see that effect. Hot air balloons don't take off and wait for a different continent to come to them. If that was the case, then a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to Los Angeles would only take an hour and a half because Earth would be turning underneath. For you to be on the ground observing it seem to drift, like the claim from Neil deGrasse Tyson makes about the football seeming to drift from the ground. Well, if we're seeing planes drift from the ground, like footballs, then their flight times have to be shortened because Earth's turning beneath them. And it isn't. Your hot air balloon can go up and come back down again on the exact same spot if it's not windy. Because Earth's not turning beneath it. It's nonsense. What's that you say, anti-flat earther? Why would I, the flat earther, expect to see drift? Oh, I wouldn't. It's just the globe claims we will. That's an example where they do. That's Neil deGrasse Tyson saying we'll see drift. Here's him saying you are seeing it in this football. It's just a blimp film and the game disproves that because there's no drift under it. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No evidence for the distance. It's there. It's a light in the sky. It's beautiful.
What is there?
Light in the sky. That's what's there.
But is it there or just does it just appear to be there?
The
They're
question
both the
to us
same
as
thing.
observers?
It's apparently
The question
there.
is
It
just-
appears to be there. It is there. There it is. That's the sun. It's there. They're both the same
It's
thing.
that. Yeah, if you look at a high altitude balloon image, you see a hotspot. It's there. Something's there giving Earth light. Yes, it's there. Distance? I don't know the distance.
Anyone
Right,
else?
but that hotspot is only really there when you're up really high.
No,
Like
that
that.
hotspot. That
So it
hotspot.
is.
Doesn't
So it is
migrate
there
with
then.
you as you go down.
The
So that
hotspot's not.
hotspot
Hold
is
on.
the
Hold on.
GP.
Owen's conflating terms. No, the hotspot's not apparent.
No, it is.
No, it is not. It's actually there
no,
on the
yeah.
clouds.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
relation
that's
to the
something tangible.
observer.
No, well,
I'll,
that's
I'll
tan-
bet you that hotspot is not lined out to be exactly there from ground level. Not
You're
like
looking
that.
at it from
How do
above.
we get the GP?
It's on top.
How do we get the-
Don't bandy words with me, Owen. It's on top. So no, obviously, if you're looking at something that's on top of the building and you're saying, well, from the ground, well, from the ground you can't see it, but from the top, that's something tangible. It's actually lighting up the clouds in a tangible manner that can be experienced, interacted with in multiple different ways. But the thing that's lighting it, on the other hand, has none of those attributes I've just listed attributable to it.
What I'm saying is because of the origin of the source, that apparent hotspot we saw in that footage, that high altitude balloon footage, I don't think that if somebody would have been there at the ground underneath the clouds, and there's going to be sunlight going through the clouds, they weren't like giant storm clouds or anything, that they would not see a hotspot outlined exactly as the observer in the high balloon.
Like I didn't
saw
even
it.
respond. I love Baldwin. Just like a baller.
Not
It's like I didn't.
not
It's like
Baldwin.
my last.
Not Baldwin.
Well, you completely
Yeah,
ignored everything I just said. So yeah, like my example. So I've got to slow it down and say, like when I gave an example with the building. So if you're describing something on top of a building, on the top of a high-rise story, a lot of height to it, and you look up and say, well, from the ground, I can't see what you're describing looking down on top of the roof of the building. Well, no, it's going to be very different, and you're not going to see the same thing. Now, if we're talking about the sun breaking through the clouds, lighting up the top of the building, and it happens to be a tiny little hole in the clouds that happen to only light that building, for my example, and you say, well, from the ground, I can just see the rays passing the top of the building. Yeah, this is the second time I've given this example, I'll just point out.
No, I'm just trying to emphasize that the apparent hotspot that even I saw in that dog cam footage, which is what this specific sighting is referring to, that if you move away from that spot while that was happening, you wouldn't see it like that anymore. Because even the apparent highlighting of objects from the apparent sun is part of the holographics. It's not
That's incorrect.
literally
Stop,
there.
stop. Let me just address that. That's wrong. So as they film the hotspot, the camera's spinning. As it spins, the hotspot remains in the same place, as does the sun, even though you're not got any tangibility to that particular aspect of this detailed phenomena. It is, however, interactable with. You could travel to that location below the sun because it's at a geographical point. Its GP is below the sun at that point. The sun has a GP. That's the area of land it's above at that point. And if you launched yourself up through your zenith, through the clouds, there'd still be a hotspot below you. It's not apparent. Third time.
No, it is, because there was a very specific outlining visual, and that outlining visual would not be there if you'd be underneath it.
Oh, God. That's his
It
fourth
would be
repetition
a
of the same
melange.
argument. It's
Well,
like,
well, because
Yeah,
your
it is the
angle
same
of view,
argument because you haven't refuted. You haven't even addressed
have.
it.
Arwen, because your
No, you
angle of
haven't.
view, Arwen, because your angle of view is different. That matters. Doesn't mean that the light's not there.
Yep.
Not like that.
Okay, great rebuttal. Let's move on. Anyone else got anything on the distance to the sun, which Arwen is now sidestepping by arguing about a hotspot? Nice job. Any evidence of the distance to the sun? If not, we'll move on.
Did
There is
anyone
no
point
distance
out?
to the sun. There's no distance to the sunlight. There's no distance to things being lit up.
Yeah, there
You
is.
can't make that
Oh,
claim.
hold on, stop.
He
Right,
can-
No,
if-
because
hold on,
if you look
hold
when
on,
it's
hold on.
not
I
there
can
anymore.
physically walk into an area that is lit when I'm in shadow, i.e. under cloud. I can look over there and go, over there is lit because there's a break in the clouds, and I can walk to it.
Yeah, so?
So, oh God. So I
that
love it.
doesn't
You
mean
refute
that
their
the
position
entire
entirely,
region
and the
is
answer and the rebuttal
highlighted
is
like
so.
a
That's basic.
circle.
Now he's mumbling through me. So
No,
that's
I'm
basic.
not mumbling.
You
I'm
are.
trying
You
to
said
rebut.
so. That implies that you want me to elaborate, and now you're mumbling through me. Yeah.
So means I'm wrong, but I'm not going to admit I'm
Exactly,
wrong.
10. Exactly. So basically, yeah, that's the 5th attempt to say the exact same thing in a multitude of different ways. And the response gets so that refutes your position that it's an apparent hotspot when I can literally walk over to a tree that's lit with the sun on it where I am not and go, here you go, here I am, where it's lit.
Yeah, but that's something that's below the clouds.
He's lost, he
You
knows
can't
it, there
even
it
see
is.
from
That mumble, that
All
stutter.
I'm saying is that the apparent disc-like circle hotspot you see when you're at ground level, you don't see that looking above, or even like going directly
Six
above the
attempts.
clouds. You're not going
Okay,
to
I'm
see
done.
a
6 attempts is
sunlit
enough.
I got
circle
one.
of the clouds.
one.
Can I please?
Can I please say the same
I got
thing
one,
for the
Chocolate. Hold
6th
up, hold up.
time?
He already lost. I'm like,
So,
I'm not
so-
lost. I
so
know
here's an
exactly what I'm
example.
talking about.
Everyone shut up.
So
Go
here's
ahead.
another example.
Go ahead, Eli.
So if you go to YouTube, that Alaskan cruise is still up, where there's a guy on a boat, and he's showing that when he pans to the left, you can see the sunlight still lighting the surface to the left. But when he looks to the right, it looks like complete nighttime. So what would you call that Terminator? Not actual?
Someone's at the door. I'll be
What
back.
do you mean? Was it Terminator that we saw? Is there no?
Yeah, there's a line between
apparent
the
shape-
night and the portion that's lit by the sun. Yes, on
That's
the
just a
ground.
transition.
Yeah, they call it a Terminator.
transition of what?
The
Transition of what?
daylight nighttime transition,
And what's causing
not
the daylight?
celestial hotspots.
No, it's only apparent, Arwin. It's only apparently
saying
in
is that-
daylight.
What's this have to do with Earth being a sphere?
Nothing. Arwin's just dragging this out for
It's
whatever
called
reasons he's
progress
got.
beyond our basic physicality assumption bias.
I don't like how you said that
Yours.
it's not at a distance when you're gonna tell me unless the sun is actually this is a virtual world where we can't say that thing is somewhere. It is somewhere. We just can't get to it. Don't know where it is. Don't know how to make any claims about it. But it is there. Where that is, we don't know. You can't say where it is. There is no there. That's crazy.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, you
I
can.
can.
I can too. It's just we did that at the
All I was
start.
saying is that
There it
the
is.
sunlight
Wait.
you see there,
Wait.
not the object. The object or the cloud has an actual distance. The sunlight that seems to be forming a hot spot in relation to the observer in that position, though, is not. That's part of the holographics, like a rainbow.
So if the sun wasn't
Let me-
there, if
let me
the
add
sun
something.
wasn't somewhere, would there be a hot spot?
Arwin's just made his claim. So holographic, you
Let me-
say? Evidence thereof.
Yeah.
Because
If you
quickly
don't
add
want to
something.
talk about it because I can't deliver you physical evidence based
Right,
on my
that's
current
the end.
document,
That's
then,
it.
I
That's
got
all we
it.
then I'll
need.
just
That's it.
bring
We
it
can
up
move
again.
on.
You can
Please,
just all
I've taken it
assume
there. We've won.
what you want to assume.
Hold on a second. I got a good example
the
that
one
will explain this
assuming.
out.
Hold on, 10th. Go
It-
ahead,
this will-
Righteous.
This will explain it out, okay? Now, I'm not saying I know it fully, but let's all look at it together, okay? Remember, let's assume there's two of us on a beach. One end of the beach and the other end of the beach. And you know how the sun can show that ray going across the water towards your feet from your perspective? But from another guy's perspective, it doesn't look like that, like it's going to your feet. It looks like it's going to his feet
Yeah.
based on his perspective, right?
Yeah.
So maybe like Arwen is comparing it with that, and maybe it's not the same thing.
Let me
But
get
then
it
I
straight.
realized, wait a second.
Let me get it straight,
But-
Righteous.
Thank
I've just got to
you.
a point where Arwin's conceded
hold-
and I could have moved on, and you're going to throw him a lifeline. Thanks so
well,
much.
Yeah, because I wasn't
I
going to
just wanna
concede.
look
I'll
at it.
shut up.
It's
I'll
a-
shut up because
but
I'm
wait a
rumpus by
second, I'm not
everybody
done yet.
disagreeing with me
I'm-
because you think I'm wrong, right? Even though I'm trying to establish a detailed framework for things that are beyond our regular understanding here. It's called holographics, celestial holographics.
Well-
yeah,
Yeah, it was a
Well, if it's
non-sequitur.
beyond
I'm not
our
going to
understanding,
concede. I've been talking about this for 6 years.
Okay,
I'm
hold
not
on.
going to concede.
Hold on.
if it's
Just let
beyond our
Righteous finish.
understanding,
Hello,
how
hello.
can you?
Just let Righteous finish. He won't be long. Go ahead, Righteous.
Okay, so now Now I'm not sure about the hotspot thing, but then I realized something else about the hotspot. The sun is actually dependent on the viewer too, where the position of the sun is. So if the position of the sun changes depending on the view, then how can the hotspot be directly under the sun if it changes with the view also?
Because you know when the morning gets here. Here's a picture right now of sunrise. Let's assume it's sunrise as opposed to sunset.
Okay.
Right? That comes at a particular time, and then a certain area of land has light. I mean, this
Okay,
isn't
well, I wasn't
complicated
sure.
stuff. I don't really understand why we're arguing this. I mean, Arwen's
Well,
just poisoned everyone. I know why, but there we go.
I'm not
There's a
too sure about
difference
the
between
hotspot.
the
I'm just asking
daylight
questions. That's
and
all
the
I'm saying.
sunlight. That's why.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
Even
it's just
biblically
that
so.
Just
it's
comes
just
along about the same sort of time, just coincidentally.
That's right.
what's
So
That's right. The daylight is
so-
separate from the sunlight, even biblically so.
Can I give an interjection on this?
well,
Because I don't
can
think
I just
Well,
want
I
to
think-
point out that what Wright just said is not. I mean, those two examples can exist without actually interacting
That's
with each
correct.
other. When you
Righteous has
see
given,
a hot
yeah.
spot, so
Righteous
yeah.
was right, and he's lent credence to Arwen's argument by giving an example that's the exception to the rule. Well, kudos to Righteous. He succeeded where Arwen failed and has given him a lifeline. Meanwhile, 10th's trying to get a word in, has been. Then John wants to add a spanner in. So go ahead, 10th. Then John.
Well, let's see if I could remember it. So Arwen doesn't know what it is, but he categorizes as holographic because he's got a bias there. Instead of just saying, I don't know, but it's obviously over the hotspot. We see it, it's there. We don't know too much about it after that, other than we observe it every day, especially in California, where 325 days a year, I see that baby at the sunrise all the way to sunset. And guess what? It works.
Yeah, we can tell where it's over.
Just like the
so we can
math.
say
I know.
it is at the zenith of this ground position at this time. That's really well worked out too. So we can say to a degree where you will be in relation to it above the ground. Not it. You can't then extrapolate that over the ground bit into where it is, because you just don't have enough data to do that. But logging where it will be above the ground at a given point, that's well and truly done and dusted. So that bit you can establish. But it doesn't give you anything in terms of your claim of it being holographic. That's something you've got to back if you want to claim it. Now, every time we do this, I'm not going to make you do it again. You've already done it once, graciously, I'll add. That's Arwen's belief, and he knows it is. Well, I'm not going to continually force him to justify his belief when he admits it immediately every single time. Why would I do that? That's not fair. I've even given the same leverage to Tim Osman when he came in and expressed his belief in Earth curve. But there we go. These are things that people are entitled to. It's Arwen's belief that they're holographic.
Yeah,
What
let
is
me
it? Let me
immediately ruin that by
continue.
saying it's your belief it's not holographic.
Let me continue
Hold
by
on,
saying,
hold on. Let me just address Arwen.
I'm
Hold on.
I don't even have time for this discussion right
Hold
now.
on. No, I haven't denied its holographic nature and said it isn't. To therefore have you forced upon me that I've got to prove it isn't holographic. No, not at all. You're making the positive assertion. Therefore, if you want to back that with your evidence or just justify it with belief, that's up to you. I haven't got to do anything. I haven't got to prove that it isn't just because I'm saying you've got to justify your claim. The positive
All
claim
right,
needs to be
fair
backed
enough.
only. The antithesis doesn't have to be denied by me. I don't have to do that. 10th, you can finish off then. John's still waiting. Go ahead.
yeah, well, if you understand what zenith position means, directly above you, then you understand what the zenith position in the GP of a star or sun is. Now, it's obviously no refraction when it's directly above you. And as it goes towards the horizon, that's when natural refraction happens, especially at up to 15 and 20 degrees above the horizon, where it's got to break through the atmosphere. I got to say that word. But all the elements in the air, the density, the water, all that stuff, and then it's refracted. Okay, and that's why you have tables for that. But the whole point is to get a GP position of the sun at a particular time of day, hour, minute, second. It's already obvious that's directly above that location. Therefore, it would cast a hotspot. It's not that difficult.
Right,
You
John.
done, 10?
Go ahead,
Yeah.
John.
What I was going to say is I don't disagree with Arwen. I think conjecture is great. Like I said, but like Nathan said, proving it's the other thing. But if you don't ever come up with a conjecture, you'll never be able to try and prove it. So it's interesting to hear. But as far as heliocentrism claims, their distances is based on elevation angles to the sun. So even...
One sec, Eli. Go ahead, John.
So their claim is necessitated by a flat plane.
Indeed. Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, I don't think anyone disagreed with Arwen because the 2 points don't meet, just to be clear.
Yeah, I don't know that it isn't holographic either. And if someone came along and challenged Darwin in that regard and went, it isn't holographic, I'd be like, okay, so you're going to demonstrate that which you're now claiming in the negative. It definitely isn't. How have you disproven, or how have you ruled that out? And if they haven't, it's like, well, that's still open to possibility. Anything's possible. I just don't know, therefore I'm not going to make any positive claims about it. Where people do, it's not unreasonable for me to say, all right, prove it. Now, the biggest, the most prevalent positive assertion is the globe claim of distance to the sun, based on a number of assumptions, many of which we've debunked. So they don't have a distance to the sun anymore. And as John's just pointed out, when they make the claims and insert R after the fact, they needed to take an elevation angle. Well, you can't do that and do trig if you've got a curved surface beneath that line that must be straight. So they're going to make their claim by utilisation of a flat plane in the first instance. Well, that's game over globe, unfortunately for them. Doesn't mean we know or must justify what the sun is. We just know how it's utilised and measured. And the trig, justifiably, means we can say this proves Earth is flat. It can't not be. Simple. Any more on the sun? If not, we'll move on to gas pressure without a container. Any evidence thereof?
Negative.
You can't have negative pressure. That's an oxymoron.
No, it's never been demonstrated. In order to have gas pressure, you need a containment.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Bunch of nonsense. You're going to need R for that. You're going to presuppose the Earth is spherical in nature. You're going to assume it's spinning. None of that's true.
As you mentioned it, any evidence of the R value? That'd be Earth radius.
Well, if there was one, we'd have a geometric horizon.
Can I just add something to the molten iron core?
Yeah, feel free.
More chocolate, maybe?
I was watching a documentary this week about the shifting magnetic poles and how that's absolutely proof. And the South Pole is now shifted off of the Antarctic shelf. And it's now sitting in the ocean somewhere. And the Northern Pole is shifted. And in their documentary, that was absolute definitive proof that our molten iron core's trajectory is starting to change.
Fascinating.
I see. I mean, there's a good chance.
Trajectory?
Yeah, this is a cause and effect relationship, though, right? They've observed an effect. Now, I'm not going to dispute that you've got shifts in terms of the lines that is created by the magnetic fields that are utilised daily. I'm not going to deny that that may or may not be the case. Maybe it is. We'll take it as read that that's actually shifted. Fine. Okay, if you say so. What's that you say? The cause is a molten iron core shift. Oh, really? And you've validated this how? And you validated the core how? They haven't. It's just a nice little story they've made up alongside it.
Yeah, that's just details.
To me, what is
it's now
interesting is that
because-
they're
Hold
picking
on,
up
Chaos.
some measurements.
Hold on, just one second.
Sorry.
Everyone except Flat Earth Solar, because it's the first core-related news we've had about 3 years. So go ahead, Solar.
Yeah, I'm just driving at the moment, but as soon as I stop, I'll post some stuff in the live stream. I captured it's 2021 research and 2022 research about how these shifting poles, that they're picking up measurements and then doing calculations. But then, like you say, how do you link that back to a core? Then that's just the assumption. That's the very loosely aligned information. But they're picking up something. And that to me was quite interesting. Why are the poles apparently shifting the way they are? Because a molten iron ball, how can it be such a pinpoint location?
Well, indeed, you've jumped the gun a little bit. I dropped in a disclaimer there because you're assuming that there is something to investigate. Have you validated that there is actually a pole at all? Or that if there is, it's shifted? Have you validated either of those two things?
No.
So,
Certainly not.
should we concern ourselves with these two invalidated details and whether or not the consequence of these two invalidated details and a story that goes along with them is true in relation to a molten iron core that's not validated? I'm not so sure I need to spend any time on this at all, really. But it's very interesting. I don't get the wrong impression, like Neil probably would at this moment, that I'm ungrateful that you've passed it on. I am very.
I just want to beg the question that if we were spinning ball in Narnia and the center mass has shifted, I feel like the ball would rotate in a off balance motion.
That's what they claim. They call it axial precession.
There you go. In your wildest dreams.
It's
It's typically the case that when you think, I would like an explanation for this slight anomaly that would be caused in the globe model as a consequence of this explanation. And what do you know? There's already one out there. Shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, but the precession of the equinoxes is a 20,000 year precession, which is just generalized. I think what this guy mentioned about if the North Pole is shifted since last year to now, that should create some sort of a wobble in addition to the precession.
So if they lengthen the time, then it's not happening so rapidly. We won't really notice it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're noticing it.
Because why would you notice things that you're supposed to notice?
No, why would you suppose this? Why do you suppose things that you're not supposed to notice? Because it takes so much time.
Even more than that, it's irrelevant. You need a flat plane to measure this phenomenon anyway. So.
How so? Hold on, this is new.
Phenomenon.
Yeah.
Well, if they're
we'll take it
claiming
as read.
that they're-
Let's get that out of the way. Sorry, John. So we're going to take it as read that we've got poles. Now, we're not going to say they're axial in nature, but we'll say magnetic poles at a couple of given points according to their narrative. So we're going to take it as read at that stage. John's saying, hang on, you're going to need a flat plane for that. Why?
Well, because from your point on the ground, you're measuring the angle to a star in relation, to your position, and then measuring it the next day, and then measuring it the next day, and then building a model and saying that it's changed this much. You still need the flat plane to make that measurement.
I see. So you're saying when they're acquiring these field lines, these magnetic field lines, and they're saying they're changing or shifting, you're saying they're only acquiring them in terms of their use of trig-based triangulation for navigation. Therefore, this is pretty loose, John. Gotta be honest.
Well, no, I'm talking about the stars in the axial or the celestial precession.
John's got a point. If he uses Polaris, which is supposedly right next to their axis.
Nah, they're not, though. We're talking about the magnetic pole.
Yeah, the study described using magnetometers or magnometers, effectively taking magnetic readings, and that those magnetic readings are starting to vary. So I don't think it quite correlates with star angles.
Right, you've got three different poles to begin with, right? True, magnetic, and celestial, I think the labels are. So, no, in this instance, because it's not referencing the polar north or whatever the terminology be to be correct in this instance, it's not that relevant. They're talking about the magnetic poles. Maybe you can salvage this, John, but I doubt it.
Sounds like
No, I think I'll retract it. But to measure to Polaris, you'll need a flat plane.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. That's true. You're going to need a flat plane for that angle measurement.
So listen, kids, if you take a course in college, this would be a very attractive subject.
What? Magnetism? Boom, boom. Any evidence of the R value itself, Earth radius? Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No scientific evidence of something that is not there.
What would you be observing?
I was about to say, by not there, you mean no phenomenon to study in the first instance. What's actually happening? Well, nothing. We're talking about bending conceptual mediums in a fourth-dimensional mathematical space-time. Not something that actually occurs in physical reality. Obviously, we're talking about pseudo-space-time.
Yeah, I'm afraid that's where they are now. And Neil deGrasse Tyson dropping the mic no longer applies because they threw Newton under the bus.
Well, because in my edit of that exact same show on Comedy Central, a clown comes on and goes, dun 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 dun, and lets go of a helium balloon shortly after he drops the mic. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
If you're a
Go on, John. No, you go. I'll go after you.
I was going to say, if you're a heliocentrist, you would require a flat plane to calculate a radius value from that flat plane to assert any phenomenon.
Wow, that's taken one step beyond, isn't it? So instead of you're going to need R, you're going to need a flat plane to acquire R to make the claim in the first instance. Oh, I like that. That's a nice extra step. A worthy addition, I feel. You've redeemed yourself entirely, John.
In that field of work or discipline, all they do is observe. And then after that, they make up stories. They never follow any regimen to prove anything.
I think that concludes the housekeeping. It's moments like that, just a second ago, John, that ably demonstrate your justifiable reason for defending Arwin in his, what's the word? Hypothesization. Essentially reification of an idea so that it can be verbalized. Only to say, yes, I appreciate this isn't necessarily reality, but without those ways of thinking, you wouldn't get to the point where your abstractions lead you to say you're going to need R for that. Because you've got to think outside the box to see if something does work. You know, you also need to think in the abstract to see how things don't work, right? Yes, Nathan. Thank you. I agree. Arwin's brilliant. Well, I'm glad we're all in agreement.
Nathan, I posted an article in Masterbee I like to read. It's lengthy, but not too lengthy, and you can scroll.
Okay. What's up?
Okay. So, basic theory of GP and position lines. Sun's GP, geographical position. The sun's GP is its position on the Earth's surface in terms of latitude and longitude. Imagine a line drawn from the center of the sun to the center of the Earth, where this line crosses the Earth's surface is the GP. Now, there's the magic trick right there. Catch it early. This point is continually moving as the sun moves across the sky. Oh, so now the sun's moving across the sky, not the Earth. Okay, another one. To avoid confusion with terrestrial coordinates, lat long, we use different terms. The latitude of the sun is called declination, and like latitude, it's measured north and south of the equator, 0 degrees at the equator, and 90 degrees at the poles. The longitude of the sun's position is called Greenwich hour angle, and like longitude is measured from Greenwich, 0 hour. However, unlike longitude that is measured west and east, GHA is always measured west from 0 to 360. Zenith distance from sun's GP. By measuring the angle between the sun and the horizon, here we go, you can easily work out how far you are from the sun's GP. The sextant allows you to measure this angle. Now we're back to what an angle is. Here's a simple formula. 90 degrees. Shh. Yes, we can say 90 degrees. Sextant angle equals how far you are away from the sun's GP. So the question here, as I take a pause, is how do you get 90 off a curved adjacent?
You don't.
Sorry.
You don't.
It's over right there. But you see all the stuff they have to put in advance, and then they give you how it works. You need a 90 degree, and you can't get that off a curved adjacent. But let's continue. It gets better. You measure the angle of the sun with your sextant. It reads 60 degrees. 90 degrees, subtract 60 degrees equals 30 degrees. We know there are 60 minutes in a degree. So 30 degrees times 60 minutes is 1,800 minutes. We are 1,800 nautical miles away from the sun's GP. Finding the GP based on time. The position GP of the sun is based on time, universal time. When we take our sextant angle, there you go again, need a flat baseline, on the sun, we also take the time by our watch. Our watch needs to be pretty accurate. So within a few seconds of universal time, we can use a special set of tables called a nautical almanac to give us the GHA and declination of the sun at this precise time. Circle of position. We can now mark the sun's GP onto a chart, a very large ocean chart. We can now measure off the distance from the sun's GP, 1,800 nautical miles, and scribe a large circle around the GP. Our position is somewhere on that circle. By the way, that has a radius line there to you, so that has to be flat. As I conclude here, to get a position, we could take the bearing of the sun with our hand bearing compass and plot this from the GP, just like we would with a lighthouse. We now have a position. The theory is very simple. However, it's also very impractical. Drawing a circle of thousands of miles is inaccurate. As it's measuring the bearing of the sun with a hand-bearing compass, we need to approach the solution another way. And that says click here to continue. So what they do is they break it down to smaller segments of that circle where they cross. And because it's such a large circle, they look like straight lines. And then your azimuth is a right angle to the sun as you come from the north. But you can see here, the death of this article and the brainwashing of anyone who believes that a sextant works on the globe is 90 degrees. Every sextant angle measurement must be subtracted from 90. And a 90 is perpendicular to what? A flat baseline. You need a flat baseline, no curve adjacent. Bye-bye globe.
Very good. Yeah, they've got to draw out an imaginary flat plane like the diagram shows on screen now. So ignore the fact that they've got an assumption of a curved surface because any angles that they're going to be measuring are going to be taken off a flat surface. So they draw out an infinitely flat line that has only one point in relation to their presupposition of a sphere beneath it. Because nothing they're actually doing relates to that sphere beneath it, and it has everything to do with the flat plane they draw on top of it, teeter-tottering at only one point. That doesn't exist anymore. Not in reality. We've debunked their tangent point horizon marked at C. That doesn't exist beyond this maths. It's not in reality. That's Earth curve, by the way. We've debunked that. So they can't draw out a teeter-tottering flat plane line on a sphere. That's the sphere bit being totally redundant to any measurements you're actually making. It's not necessary. And if you have got that idea of a sphere beneath the measurements you're making, you better correct for it and get it flat. Because it needs to be. Because you can't have a right angle triangle sat on a curved adjacent. It just doesn't work. Must be flat. Earth must be flat. This is our proof. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, if you're asking for flat Earth proof, elevation angle proves it. Earth can only be flat.
You know the Earth is a sphere because it's measured flat.
No, that's how you know it's flat. Oh, that concludes the housekeeping anyway. Managed to get our way through it. Happy days all round. No further nonsensical rebuttals from anybody in regards to the elevation angle argument?
I got 2 slides for you for that as they come on, if you want to go to Master B again.
Sure, we'll start with the teeter-tottering right angle triangle sat at a tangent point that's been debunked by the Black Swan, and how ludicrous it looks in their textbooks.
If you put this picture of that boat with a right angle using a proper sextant instructions, which is you get a right angle, a 90, they're going to say, hang on, I'm going to read that article. You know, the article I just read, if this picture was in that article, people would say, what's going on here? This picture can't work. But they don't show this picture. But they describe this picture when they try to say it works on the globe.
Yeah, it looks and is ludicrous and geometrically impossible to do.
That's why it's not being done that way.
Right, you can't measure the angle because there's no imaginary teeter-tottering tangent plane sat on top of any imaginary redundant to the measurement sphere as depicted in this diagram. Yet you need a flat plane to measure the angle that's coming out of the bottom of this boat.
Go to the next picture, and it contrasts the two together side by side. What's this sextant? It's an angle measuring device, and the next picture shows it. It could only work on a flat plane. You need the baseline. That's why you do dip correction with the natural horizon and do not do it with the bubble horizon, because the bubble horizon already gives you horizontal. It gives you a flat baseline in your eyesight as you're looking through the sextant. So you've achieved what you need to do to make the angle work with a bubble sextant. But when you're on the boat, you need to use the natural horizon, and you're above it by a certain amount of meters. So you minus that. The table's right there in the Nautical Almanac to get you to sea level so that you can have a parallel sea level matched and give you the horizontal of your eye line that you're holding on the boat. So you got 2 flat baselines there to make sure you're doing it right, because you're using a natural horizon and you got to get level with it.
Very good.
You know, when you say, where'd you get R? This one's easy. Where'd you get 90?
Yeah.
Where'd you get 90?
They don't if the Earth's a sphere.
It's over right there. That's the only thing you got to do is where'd you get 90 from the surface of the Earth for a GP radius of a star from you, 1,800 miles. That all has to be flat. 1,800 miles of flat. What happened to 8 inches per mile square? What happened to the curved surface?
How can you have a curved adjacent whilst acquiring an elevation angle?
You can't.
Any more for any more? Before I round out, ask people to stay.
8 inches per mile flat.
Well, that would be a perspective derivative that probably wouldn't have the 8 inches per mile formula attributable because it implies physicality where there isn't any. But I like what you're driving at. I like it. Go on, whoever that was in Discord.
I just said if you don't add the squared, then it's just a slope, 8 inches per mile, like Alwyn said.
Well, the problem is that what we actually see is linear perspective. So how can it be linear if it's got a squared function applicable on the globe Earth? Well, the answer is it isn't. And that formula is related to a geometric obstruction called Earth curve. It's talking about the horizon, right? Anything beyond that limitation that they're describing with 8 inches per mile squared? Yeah, but in reality, we just see linear perspective. So if we've got linear perspective, we haven't got a squared function, which is what they're asserting. Shout out to Antecedent Algorithm Algonquin, my bad, Algonquin Collective, for joining as a channel member. Thank you very much indeed. See if I
So
can-
Nathan, is there such a thing as a linear circumference?
a linear circumference. from your vantage point, no. If it was spherical, again, you would actually have the squared function that they describe. It would be close enough to what they're describing from the ground. So, yeah, I'm probably going to round out on that question 10th. So with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering Streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, smashed the PayPal link and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Went to ban somebody in the chat just after
I'm on a
the...
job site.
Oh, sorry.
What happened in chat?
No, so I went to ban somebody and then Paula did it for me.
Oh, okay, good.
I thought we were all having a moment of silence.
We were. No one was talking.
Typically, I'd be talking there, but like I say, I was concentrating on something that was going on in the chat while the outro ran. So, Neil, you asked me to dig out the show that you delivered a substantial super chat, and I did, and thanked you. But I did want to make another note of it, because typically, as I explained to you verbally, February would be an absolutely horrendous month. So, typically, the month that's just ended, that's January, is a tough month for, I assume, other YouTubers, but certainly for me, because people have got less money, and I rely on the contributions of the people watching, right? Well, although it is still going to be a tough month next month, it would have been horrendous had I have not got your substantial super chat. So I thank you. Looking at it, it's like, wow, it's going to be a crap
Good
month
news.
next month. But then I remember that you gave me a lot of money, and I'm like, wow, things would be a lot worse. So yeah, it's going to be a tough one next month, but not as tough as it could have been. So I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I thought you asked me to find that show. That's why I found it. I didn't really care if you shouted me out or not. I was kind of hoping it would go without notice, but next time.
Yeah, well, it was delivered at about 3 o'clock in the morning, so I wasn't around to see it. But yeah, thank you very much. I am very grateful. But things tend to pick up, so I would hope, you know, through February, people get over the sting of Christmas and all the expense that goes with it. And yeah, typically things, well, I hope so. Otherwise things will be on a downward incline. But after doing this for many, many years now, it's always been the case just after Christmas. Things get tough for me that following month. So there we go. Such is life for a lot of people. We don't need a moment of silence for that.
You know, you ever try to like get off mute, and no matter what you do, you can't. Trying to scroll up to get off mute to say something. Anyway, I jump on this new job. A friend of mine that I usually work with in another shop has a job. So I get here, see a guy named Tommy there. So I go in there. I'm like, you Tommy? Are you with Sammy? He's like, no, I'm the boss. I said, oh boy, one of them. We got one of them.
So Bruce Springsteen is working with you, you say?
The guy, like, I don't know, it's just weird. Sometimes I gotta hold my temper, like, because he said a couple of things already where I almost just said, "Buddy, I'll see you later." But I just drove 2.5 hours out here, so I'm not doing that. And my light went on again. Money that I paid for this VDC off slip light came on again. I need a
Have you
brand
checked
new
your
car.
petrol cap? I used to get that warning until I changed the petrol cap.
Yeah, it's not that. It was. Now I found out that the guy that supposedly changed my calipers did not, because they look old and rusted. He said, looks like he just cleaned them up. So, if you don't know anything about cars, you're going to get taken to the freaking shed.
Ah, bummer. Well,
I
I'm
have
sorry to
something
hear it.
semi-related.
Go on, John.
I was going to say, have you like noticed if when we're talking about off subjects that ballers are more likely to interject with their beliefs? Have you noticed a correlation in that?
In relation to their beliefs about people ripping you off for brake discs and such like, you mean?
No, like we're discussing being ripped off for brake discs, but then they jump in and think that it's the perfect chance to prove a sphere. Called
Yeah,
stupid or something.
That's old
yeah,
shit.
that definitely has happened in the past. But then we noticed the pattern and started highlighting it. So we'd be talking about movies, and then suddenly we'd get an interjection from a fundy because it's like, oh look, they're all just talking about movies. But then we started pointing it out, and it stopped.
That's interesting that it stopped. It's almost like there's a hive mind behind it if it stopped.
I think there's a fair amount of internal discipline that goes on within their ranks, from what I get told on the grapevine. I don't know, I've not experienced this personally, but certainly anecdotally, if you do something that's out of line, you get told off. And in many ways, coming on here at all is out of line. So, maybe there's some fear from the powers that should not be within the ranks. I don't know.
Have you ever noticed any anomalies with your with the data that you analyze from your YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Like drop off that are irregular?
Yeah. When COVID started, I had consistent 300 plus live stream viewers. COVID hit, and I was like, "Whoa, hey! If everybody's locked down, what are they going to do? They're gonna watch me. They're more likely to. There's a larger audience that I can capture." And the antithesis actually occurred. There was a steep drop off in terms of my viewing figures.
I noticed that
So
Goddess
the same
hasn't
thing
been
happened.
Hold on 1 second. Go ahead. Is it illegal?
Yeah, I just said I noticed that Flat Earth Goddess hasn't been back yet.
I did tear a strip off her. I was thinking about her earlier when we were asked by one of the super chatters, I think it was Fiber Oats, if we'd welcome Bob with welcome arms. It's like, people are people. It doesn't matter what your beliefs are. If you happen to align with me about flat Earth, it doesn't mean you're suddenly going to get special treatment or treated any other way. Or same applies if you're a Glober and you come in. It doesn't mean you're going to get treated any differently. So she was no different.
Yeah, I mean, we would get a little more togetherness if people came back and said, "Hey, show is live every morning. The first ones to be on, at least here in America, other than Arwen's Flat Earth Early Bird Show. If anyone wanted to extend their sincerest hoops of togetherness, I would expect them to come over and say good morning. You're doing great work here. I'd like to put my input on things that have happened in the past week, because that is possible. We don't have to talk to each other every day. You guys are more than welcome to come on the show and present anything interesting that's happened, any channels that you're involved with, or podcasts that you're involved with. You're very welcome to come and share if anything is of worthy note.
Togetherness kind of sounds culty too. I'm not really into the whole togetherness idea.
Me neither. I say the opposite. Even to you guys on the panel. There's no obligation. If you don't come, that's absolutely fine. There's absolutely no obligation on your part to turn up. So, there's no hard feelings when you don't, etc., etc. But there's an impression that somehow there's a community here. It's like, well, if there is, you could only really ascribe that to Betty's aspect of the Flat Earth Debate show, and that's the Discord server, which isn't mine. And I don't run it or take part in it. I often get criticised for not taking enough part in it. Like, well, I spend 2 or 3 hours a day in it, but, you know, if that's not enough, well, you need to be here when you're not here, because when you're not here, other stuff goes on. It's like, okay, I'll try and be there when I'm not there then, because that'll occupy my entire day if I do that. But no, that, if you want to call it a community, isn't something that I participate in. It's because it has no appeal, really. You know, I very rarely see completely eye to eye with anybody ever, but that's because I'm generally disagreeable, you know, as opposed to a problem with society or this community, if you want to call it that. Hey, Adam.
Afternoon, guys.
Hello. We're having a community functionality meeting.
Oh, time to go then, is it?
Nah, we're just talking about Flat Earth Goddess, who certainly made an impression, you know. I think she was trying to piss in her territory, or whatever you want to call it, mark her territory. But she got a bit of a rude awakening when she did. Well, yeah, rather she knows immediately that, you know, nonsense assertions in regards to a misapprehension about science will be tolerated unless you're making demands of, you know, things need to be done around here, more needs to be done by you. Then you'll get a rude awakening like she did. But I'd hope it hasn't put her off. She certainly seemed to allude to the idea that she's been called worse and all this sort of stuff. When I was telling her I didn't want to align with her if she didn't understand what science was.
It's a break. Hey guys, coming there, and
hello.
I heard those bits.
No, I was going to say I was there for the show, so she said she had a large Instagram presence, so she's fighting the flat Earth battle from that foothold, and she wandered off to your channel and realized we fight it a little differently here, and realized I could up my game. I could up my game if I learned some of these arguments by the time the show was over. So I think at the end it went well. It was a little feisty there in the middle, but that's what happens when you wander off and say, oh, all flat earthers should be together. We should, well, not necessarily. If you're going to give in on the arguments and the begging the questions, I don't want you on my team.
Yeah, Neil pointed out on the last show, I think it got recorded, I can't remember, and I think it was in the pre-show, it's like, did you get told off by Paula? And I was like, no. Paula's presence was made known, and then there was no need to, you know. But it could have descended into a lot worse than it did, but for the fact that Paula made her presence known. So, but she, good to credit her for the fact that she didn't in any way embarrass me when she did. So
she rebuked you. Stop it.
Hey, hold on, guys. Let's bring attention to Neil. Okay, Neil, we were busting his balls for a whole show. He left, right? Came back the next day or 2 days later and said, you know what? I looked into my claim and I'm going to change my rhetoric from dome to container.
No, he did not. That's not right. Incorrect.
You can be.
No, that's not what he said.
Oh, really?
That's not what he said. He said firmament.
I'm back on the dome.
He said firmament. I listened back to the show. His line cut off when he said it, and we all nodded in agreement because we didn't hear that bit. But I heard the first syllable of it, and then his mic cut off. But Later, he clarified it as firmament, and we all took it as a joke because we didn't hear it the first time. But initially, and Neil will now say, yes, that's absolutely right, I immediately declared that I was changing from dome to firmament as opposed to containment.
Correct.
See?
Fair enough, but it still shows that he evolved his position and didn't leave and disconnect, you know? So he's still here. We're all still buds. We're all still talking about the topic.
Au contraire. You think that's a change of position? No, it isn't.
Yeah, it is. It most definitely is.
Oh, righty-o. Define firmament for me. Oh, we did already. We went through this.
Tangible thing.
A claim. The point of the discussion isn't necessarily to make his claim alter in any way, shape or form. It's to realise that you're making a claim at that point. Not that your claim's wrong, right or indifferent. It doesn't matter. The point is it's unnecessary. You don't have to justify what the sky is. And why would you? I don't know, you don't know. Why would you be justifying your explanation for it when you don't have to? The positive assertion it's a sky vacuum. The antecedent for the gas pressure we're breathing, containment. That's it. That's all you need. So to expand on it and go, well, firmament, let's focus on that indefinitely, because that's what your opponent will do. That's all they'll do.
But at least it's not a shape claim. Right here, all it says is the heavens or the sky, especially when regarded as a tangible thing. That's not a shape claim. That sounds like a containment claim.
And where's the claim come from? Because that's the next thing. If you can justify how it's not a specific claim of a shape or something tangible, if you can get around that, we're already debating the claim made in our side's instance, though, aren't we? We're already doing that now. Even with me trying to point out that by doing so, we're unnecessarily debating the word firmament over dome, rather than solidifying in the audience's mind's eye that the sky is not a vacuum and outer space is fake. That's getting lost even now with us. We're all on the same side, and that's getting lost through the unnecessarily unrequired defence of this word, firmament. Don't have to do it, it's not needed. But here we are.
I understand, but in all fairness, even in the context of the Bible, again, it doesn't make a shape claim, but they knew, or at least alluded to, there being containment.
Oh, well, as a globe-believing Muppet, I'm going to now absolutely, without question, focus on your belief in the Bible, rather than the fact that we can't have gas pressure without containment.
Yeah, I see, but if you're going to take that stance from the Bible, that's your problem.
Yeah, but then you're unnecessarily defending your stance in regards to your Bible assertions, rather than the requirement for containment, their sky vacuum in the first instance positive assertion required. That's the debating point that immediately gets lost, because what, you've got a bit of pride in terms of your belief in a firmament now? Well, that pride's going to lead you down an avenue that loses the point in terms of the actual argument, regardless of if it's got a tacit acceptance when we move on to your Bible belief. Well, okay.
May I comment? Because I do have a Bible belief.
Well, I thought you might.
Well, no, I mean, you'll be happy. I agree with Nathan here, because when you do it by just saying containment, then that's the only thing they can come back and try to argue and say, well, I'll show you gas pressure without a containment. Perfect. I can't wait to see it. When you bring in the Bible and say that containment is firmament, which I do believe personally, now you give him two things, that first one and a second one. He can't do the first one, which is show you gas pressure without a container. So he's going to latch on to the second one. Where'd you get firmament? Oh, well, that you're using the Bible. And then now you're off the subject, as Nathan is saying. So if you want to kill the argument, you go to its root essence and say, can you have gas pressure without containment? And just leave it there, because it's so solid in that there's nothing else for them to grab and run with to hide from proving that unprovable point.
Right.
So
you've let them have a reversal of burden because you've made a positive claim. Now, you've dropped it in where it wasn't required, but equally, in any other subject, they'll pick that route over any other in every respect. Oh, right, you say the horizon rises to eye level. And me, when I'm hearing this, I'm just slapping my own head going, what the hell? Why have you made the why do you need this claim for the horizon to rise with you? Does it somehow prove a flat plane? Are you utilising it as a demonstration of your assertion that the Earth's flat? No. You're using it to deny that the geometry of a sphere would dictate that the physical limitation of a horizon known as Earth curve would drop away from you as you raise in altitude. But you're not making that claim, are you? You're making a positive assertion for a flat Earth that then needs to be defended and can be disproven. So where you left, you left being wrong for your positive assertion. Wouldn't it have been better to say the horizon's not Earth curve when they're making the positive assertion that it is, and then show how it isn't a physical limitation to your view at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, because that's their claim they're making? Notice I haven't made a damn claim about anything at this stage, but I've debunked Earth curve. And what's that? I've got to now justify to them because they demand I explain what the horizon is. No, I don't need to do that. I'll just walk away laughing. No, it's not Earth curve.
You want a real life example of it? I had a good Christian friend of mine who recently became a flat earther, and it was on this subject of, and I was sharing with him the housekeeping questions and helping him because he wanted to go tell all his family members. And I say, hang on, get grounded first, know the arguments, don't fall for all the begging the question. I just went through the whole thing. When it came to gas pressure without containment, he said, yeah, that's in the Bible, the firmament. I go, yes, for us, yes. And I believe it too, but don't argue from the Bible point, because then they're going to say that's in the Bible and they don't accept the Bible. You have a much stronger argument by saying, can you have gas pressure without containment, and keep everything else out of that, no matter what it is, and then get them so stuck there because they can't. And he says, I got it. He got it right away because he realized that for us who believe God's word is true, that's exactly what it is, what's doing it, the firmament. But I'm not going to argue from that point because not everyone's on that same line of thought, right? But everybody is on the one here. Can you have gas pressure without containment? Everybody who lives on this earth is stuck to that one, period. Keep it nice and tight.
The dome.
Oh, God, I hate him sometimes. So Neil's very useful in this regard, because without Neil making this claim, and for us to dissect it in the manner that we have, you wouldn't have the opportunity for QE to undermine it entirely by just blurting out dome right at the end when I'm, itching to make the summary. So thank you for that, QE.
You're welcome.
It's not necessary.
He's so funny.
It's not needed. You don't need to make the positive assertion. And the phraseology from 10th Man momentarily ago was perfect, because he's disclaimed his belief. For us, in our Bible understanding, it's a firmament. Now, further to that, he could say dome, and it wouldn't matter with that disclaimer prior to it. Now, don't use the disclaimer when you're talking to your opponent. That's a disclaimer that comes between fellow Christians in this example. Perfectly acceptable. But a disclaimer nonetheless with people on the same side to let the guy know that all that will be focused on is his Bible belief when he asserts it, rather than the understanding and inevitable failure for them to get around the fact that you need containment to have gas pressure. You just stick to that. What are you going to do at the end of the argument? Are you going to be spending 25 minutes justifying your Jesus? No, you're not. You won't have needed to. So prove your dome, Fundy.
Yeah, and I've had just as many Christians argue that firmament just means open sky that enters a vacuum. So even two fellow Christians will argue with the word firmament. So like you guys have rightly put out, go back to the root of the question.
Can't do that though, because it's a tangible thing.
Yeah, a Christian heliocentrist has the same exact second law of thermodynamics violation to cope with. So, no.
It's just that
Can I
one
change the
definition of
subject?
rakia where it says expanse. And that's what they always get stuck on. It's just an expanse that expands into the vacuum.
That was later added.
Define expanse.
That was later added. Go to the root word. It's not. It's something stamped out, something hard. Scientism has come into the pulpit, and that's a problem because they don't want to look crazy by saying NASA is lying when Christians and non-Christians here could easily say NASA is lying, and we don't look crazy because they got nothing. And
Didn't like that phraseology.
So many people.
Come into the pulpit. Don't you mean come from the pulpit? 10th.
Not. Well, it depends which pulpit you're talking about. The Catholic priests who own the church says they have 80% of the observatories, and they've been involved in this part of evolution and the Big Bang and everything else. Yes, it comes from that source. But what happens is, let me just clarify here. You have different sects in the Christian world. You got Methodist, you got Presbyterian, you got all these. Again, these were none of my concern when I was asking God to reveal himself to me at the age of 14. I got visited by God. I became a Christian at 14 and a half, and I've been a Christian ever since. And I read the Bible, and I have to correct Christians all the time. I go, Jesus doesn't talk about Presbyterian or Methodist or Baptist. This is all you guys. I go to the words of Jesus if you want to follow Christianity. And it's right there in the Bible. So, yeah, I have as many arguments with my Christian brothers and sisters who fall into scientism as we do here with ballers. Trust me.
Well, down to the rebuttal of whatever he said, expanse. Many people have a misunderstanding with the word expanse. They confuse it with the word expansion. Expanse is actually a surface.
Exactly. And Righteous says something about a coog of the earth, which throws everything off.
We just had Paula the other day go to the root word and tell us what it was. Something hard, something stamped out. You want to now say it's an expanse? Expanse was stamped out. Expanse is hard. Fine. But don't change it from that because that's the root word.
Okie dokie. I'll try not to.
Can I move on to something?
Yeah.
Okay, so in practice, the zenith distance is not measured. It's a complement, and I'm reading this, of the altitude angle, which is measured. I'm going to read that again. In practice, the zenith distance is not measured. It's a complement. The altitude angle is measured. And what do we use to measure the altitude angle?
Altitude angle and elevation angle are the same thing. They're used interchangeably, just for anybody's...
Correct.
Just so people know, they might not be aware.
Yeah, the angle of the sun or star in the sky.
The height
so
you
what
are...
do we use?
The height you are above the flat baseline that forms the flat plane we all stand on.
What tool do we use to measure angles?
A sextant.
Yes, so let me read on. Zenith distance is determined by substituting the measured altitude in the equation. Zenith distance equals 90, subtract altitude. Altitude and zenith distance have a relationship, but you're never measuring the zenith distance. What are you doing? Well, you're on Earth. It's called a horizontal coordinate system when you're on Earth. The alt-az, the altitude and the azimuth. So you're on Earth using a sextant on a horizontal, and that's the only thing you got is the horizontal coordinate system. And you take out the sextant and you measure the altitude or elevation angle from this horizontal coordinate system. And when you minus or subtract that from 90, the complement is the zenith distance.
Perfect. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal link, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.